Okay, it says I'm live. Let me check on Left Wing Pod. Oh, there we are. Perfect. And who's this clown here? TJ Wetters. Oh, we're good. I don't care about that one, but all right. Welcome to the Left Wing Live, ladies and gentlemen. This is we're still getting our growing pains in here, trying to figure out what we're doing here. I'm joined by the great John Cooper. John, how you doing these days?
Doing good, TJ. Doing good. It's been a busy week. So really what I'm going to need you to do for me here is just tell me what's going on because I have not been watching the news. So,
No,
not that I ever watch the news, but
well, fortunately for us, like it doesn't really change all that much. It's pretty much the same stuff over and over again. I entitled this live that Nikki Haley falls 91 felonies short of winning the GOP primary. And yeah, it's like that was her problem. Her problem was she didn't commit enough crime. Your thoughts on this? I mean, you saw it coming. It was Super Tuesday yesterday, and we all knew that she had to drop out eventually. You surprised? Thought she'd hold out, or just about what you would expect?
I'm surprised she dropped out.
Mhm.
I thought she would just go down to the wire. I get that it costs money to do that, but it feels like you've already spent enough money to this point. You can just sort of secure yourself tons of media coverage for the rest of your career. Why not just do it? Like why? Like because that's her whole thing. She's like, I'm fighting tooth and nail against Trump. Just put your money where your mouth is. You know, like I hate to say this, I was gaining respect for Nikki Haley. Still, fuck her. But this was that was making me have more respect for Nikki Haley. She's doing this. Do I care either way? Not really. But I'm surprised that it wasn't like a, what's the word? You overinvest and then you feel like you have to invest more. There's a name
Sunk
for that.
cost fallacy.
Sunk cost fallacy.
Yeah.
I thought she would sunk cost fallacy her way into running the whole thing out, but who knows?
I was a little bit surprised. I mean, I knew she'd be dropping out. It was just a matter of when. And I didn't expect it to be the day after Super Tuesday. But I mean, what probably happened, she ran out of money. I imagine that. And that's why most people drop out. And it's weird. So it's because I understand the predicament here because I don't want to say I've been gaining respect for her, just like you. I don't want to say it. But it's kind of like, when what was his name? When Chris Christie started the GOP primary, and he was just going all in on Trump, just mocking him, insulting him. She was starting to reach that level, and it's such a rarity to see Republicans even dare challenge the dear leader. That I'm like, oh, look at that, someone's got some stones. We kind of respect that about Nikki Haley, and I'm curious though what her plan is for the future, because whether Trump wins or loses, it's not like she's going to be remembered fondly for this. Not amongst the voting base, at least. I understand that her donors want that, and the Republican intelligentsia and media want that. But the voting base is not. This doesn't make her more likely to win the GOP primary in the future, I don't believe.
I'm going to disagree with you on that.
Oh, okay.
I don't know Nikki Haley's situation in South Carolina. I don't know if she can run again. I don't know. I know this is going to hurt her in South Carolina.
Well, she was already out, wasn't she?
Like she already out?
Yeah, she was governor, but she was ambassador, or was it the other way around? Okay, but
I don't remember. I know what I'm saying here is that South Carolina, of all of the red states, is a very Trumpy red state. It's not I would say Texas isn't a very Trumpy red state.
They got Greg Abbott and Ted Cruz.
Oh, they got Greg Abbott and Ted Cruz, but like they're going to be red no matter what. Or like those people. South Carolina, they just love Trump the human. They really love the Trump character. I remember when I was living down there in 2016, and I'm just walking down Greenville, South Carolina, walking down the street, and one of the storefronts, like prime location storefronts, is just a Trump campaign stop. And it was like a lobby. It had a desk where someone would talk to you about Trump, and you could take pictures with a cardboard cutout of Donald Trump. And there was a line.
Oh my!
There was a line. Oh my God. Not just on opening day. Most days I passed. It was insane, and that was a liberal area of South Carolina. So all I'm saying is that South Carolina has a personal cult of personality attachment to Trump, more so than other red states necessarily have, at least in my personal experience. And it could hurt her in her own state. But if you think long term, Nikki Haley ain't that old.
No.
she's got plenty of years left to go, and in 15 years, the cult of personality around Trump will not matter.
True.
And what will be remembered, what she's banking on, is that the Republican Party regrets Donald Trump and wants to pivot away from that style of politics once all the boomers die. And oh, look, who's already positioned themselves as pivoting away from that style of politics? Oh, and who's also a woman? Bonus points? Nikki Haley. You know, like I think that's the thinking here. If I'm Nikki Haley, that's why I'm doing this.
Yeah.
I love it. I get to see we should use this all the time. This looks so much better than the Zoom call, and we can both see the comments. Like, that's crazy.
Thank you guys. Voidcast. Check out the Voidcast, people, if you haven't. That's a great YouTube channel and TikTok channel as well. Yeah, that's a good point about Nikki Haley and the future for the Republican Party, because I'm curious to know. So if Trump loses, it's going to be the most interesting part of watching. Remember when Romney lost in 2012 and they had or maybe you don't remember, but the Republicans kept saying they were doing an autopsy on the Republican Party. They said it all the time to try to fix and basically they decided we need to be less extreme. We need to be more welcoming to immigrants. They held on to that for about 3 months and then it went right back to normal.
And then they went the other direction.
Exactly. Yeah. What if we had Sarah Palin but richer? But they basically combined Sarah Palin's stupidity and Mitt Romney's money, and they got Donald Trump, and they kind of rolled with it. But yeah, so I was thinking near term, because I don't know what the Republican Party is going to look like the next 2, 4, 6 years, but it's going to be a mess. And the Trump wing is still they're not going to have the power. I don't believe Trump loses, but they will have a strong influence. But you're 100% right. 15 years from now, maybe 10 years from now, people are going to pretend that they weren't fans of Donald Trump. They're all going to say, "Oh, remember
the same way they were against the Iraq War the whole time."
Same. Yeah, they do it all the time. They do it with the Iraq War. Republicans have been. It's funny how Republicans have oscillated on this with gay rights, though, because when Obergefell came out, Republicans, when they lost in embarrassing fashion, they said, "Oh, I never cared if you were gay. Just what you do in the privacy of your own home, that's on you. Never cared about it at all." And they've been saying that for 10 years until recently. Now, being homophobic and transphobic has become, more in vogue, and they kind of, they're inching back to that now. But yeah, whenever they lose on a national stage and they're embarrassed, they all pretend that they weren't big fans. But it's their MO all the time.
You just touched a topic I just want to talk about, which is unrelated to Nikki Haley, but the gay thing. So recently Elon Musk, he tweeted that meme of like, you have like left dude, relatively left but center dude, and then right dude, and then like the left dude keeps going farther left, and he's like, oh well, I guess I'm a conservative now, if that's what the left is. You know what I'm talking about. And I was like, how the hell, in what way have the Democrats moved left? The only way the Democrats have moved left in any significant way is social issues.
Yeah.
And if in 2008 you were in the Democratic position on gay marriage, which obviously the DNC and politicians in 2008 and even Obama was against gay marriage in the same way that they weren't against it philosophically. They were against it from like, we should states' rights sort of thing, whatever. Democrats were weirdly Republican back then. But the point is, if you were like for gay marriage in 2008, you didn't suddenly become against trans people in 2024. Like that doesn't describe anyone. Like everyone who was for gay marriage in 2008 either like didn't know what the fuck trans people were and wouldn't care if they did, or like were just lying. Like the people who say that now are people who at some point in like 2012 realized after they did their autopsy, hey, we can't be hating gay people anymore. And just started saying they accept gay people, but really philosophically never did the work to get there. And that's why they hate trans people now. And it's all the same fucking arguments.
Yeah. So I've seen that Elon Musk, I've seen Elon Musk post and other people, but you said that, the Democrats haven't really moved further to the left except with social issues. But that's probably what he's talking about, though, right? Because I mean, economically,
he's talking about social issues.
Okay,
yeah.
all right, yeah.
But he's just lying that he supported gay marriage in 2000.
Oh, gotcha.
That's what I'm saying. Like
gotcha.
You're being disingenuous. You
Okay.
never were in lockstep on the social issues either. You have stayed put. You've always been a conservative on that.
Gotcha. I see. Well, see, whenever I see stuff like that, my thought is, because people like to say this, they like to say, well, man, I was a Democrat back in, the 80s, but I look around now, I haven't changed. And all of a sudden the Democrats are, first like, yeah, that's how the world works. I'm sorry. That's exactly, you shouldn't expect it to be any other way. If you were a conservative in 1975, you are a radical conservative today. Like you're talking about people who were openly, well, I guess the conservatives kind of wrote back to this, against like the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act and everything like that. So yeah, that you should expect time to kind of make you feel more and more distant the way, because you, unfortunately, young people decide what's cool. It's really weird that we let 16-year-olds tell us what's cool. No, you don't get to do that. We should be able to do that, but the youth dictates how culture is going to operate and how what the baseline is for what's cool and acceptable and liberal and hip and everything. And older people are going to be more distant from that. So yeah, if you stay in the same place for 30 years, you should expect to be further to the right than you were 30 years ago. That just makes sense to me.
Yeah, and you kind of brought up a point there where like the youth determine what's cool.
Yeah,
and that's because the youth are predominantly predisposed to giving more of a shit about what everyone thinks, and therefore are trying to be cool all of the time. Relative to older people, I think everyone can agree with that. But the other thing is that like we just know from a logical perspective that, oh shit, I'm 26. Fuck. If I don't agree with the people who are 18, I'm 27. Fuck. I'm so old, aren't I, TJ? I'm 27. If I don't agree with what the 17-year-olds are saying, when I'm 37 and they're my age, that's going to be pretty much more normalized. And then when I'm 37, if I don't agree with the 17-year-olds are saying, God, when I'm, like they are going to be the future. But you are taking a looking glass into what is going to be cool 10, 20 years from now when you're looking at today's teenagers. And so like, yeah, that makes sense. That's why it has always blown my mind, TJ, why anyone would label themselves as a conservative, because you're going to lose. You look at the entire course of human history and conservatives always lose constantly over the long term. In the short term, they win a lot because by definition
they're in positions of power.
The system, they're in positions of power, but the sands of time will wash them away. And it blows my mind how anyone would ever take a hyper conservative position knowing that their grandkids are going to be able to see it. Think about this with any sort of forethought, and you're going to realize that your trans position isn't going to look good in 40 years.
Yeah. Well, so conservatives have kind of caught on to this over the years. Like, I don't know when they started doing this. It's fairly recent though, where in the past, like 30 years or so, liberal used to be a bad word. And for us, it still is, but for a different reason. But conservatives they would proudly proclaim themselves. And then Bush, George W. Bush is when it started to change, because Bush would always refer to himself as a compassionate conservative. That's what he put a little qualifier in front of it, because he knew the word conservative was already starting to take on a fairly negative connotation at the time. But these days, they do. I see them backing away from the word conservative all the time. Like you ask them what they are, they say, well, I'm a moderate, or I'm a classical liberal, or whatever term they use to describe themselves. There's the
I'm
hard
sorry,
liners,
hold on,
of
TJ. Who are you talking about here?
No, so listen,
like everyday common men.
Yes,
okay.
I'm not talking about like Charlie Kirk or Ben Shapiro or whatever like that. Not the pundits, but when you talk to regular people, it's kind of like how they don't like to declare themselves as Democrats. Everyone's an independent now, and it's not because their points of view have changed. It's because they don't want to be locked in. And I do get that. I do understand that. Or they don't want to call themselves a conservative, because then I'm going to say, well, conservatives believe bop, bop, bop. And they're like, oh, no, not that. So I get why they don't want to lock themselves into the title. But fewer and fewer people, south of 60 are calling themselves conservatives for that very reason. Then again, a lot of people don't label themselves leftists or Democrats either, because, they don't want to, paint themselves into a corner.
Yeah, it's labels are weird. We talk about this all the time. We're like, I don't even use, I use leftist or progressive as a label because they're very broad. They cover a lot of things, and anyone who sees those things as default bad things ain't going to agree with me anyway. So that's the way I see it. But yeah, it also is necessary. Like
exactly. Yeah.
Like, how am I supposed to talk about groups of people without those labels? How am I supposed to talk about? How am I supposed to introduce myself to potential people? You know, it's really hard. Like we talk about with the communism socialism thing all the time. We're just like, yeah, you know, my views are pretty darn socialist, but do I want to label them that way? I don't know. There's pros and there's cons. But I'm not privy to these conversations on the right side of thing. I wonder like what the big divides in terms of terminology is for them. Like, because I feel like conservative I still hear regularly.
So I guess it depends what kind of conservative you're talking to, because I just know from like I'm still on Facebook and I still have a bunch of people who I grew up with that are conservatives. Fewer and fewer just boldly assert they're conservatives. There's this, for example, there's this lady I know. She's probably like 70, and she will always post these long, like all caps boomer posts, you know, talking about how they're coming for the children and, you know, there's men in dresses everywhere. We got to put a stop to this nonsense. And she will just type up, you know, 40 lines of the most extreme right-wing screeds you've ever heard of. And she always ends those posts with registered independent. I'm like, look, okay, fine. You're a registered independent. Who cares? All of your beliefs are conservative. So just be bold enough to admit it. Dave Rubin did this for a long time with punditry. He called himself a classical liberal. Tim Pool for a long time referred to himself as the last liberal or disaffected liberal. Elon Musk Elon Musk has never said he's a conservative. Like, even that post that you were talking about before, he's talking about, well, you know, I was always on the left, but now the left has gone crazy, but I haven't changed. So they try to dance around it. It's cowardly, but I see it all the time.
That also is just like to say I haven't changed over the past.
Yeah.
What
do you think a conservative
2008 is? 16 years. Like what? How is that a good thing? Like, how are you saying that with pride?
Right.
Like, if I haven't changed since 2008, that would be really bad. I would say terrible things about me.
Exactly.
And I can't imagine 16 years from now. It's not 16. It is 16. 16 years from now, I'll be like, oh yeah, I haven't changed since I'm a 50-year-old who hasn't changed since I was 27 years old.
Yeah.
I feel like that would be wrong. I feel like that would make me look bad.
Yeah. It's like with us, like we try our best to be open, because you mentioned how it doesn't make sense to lock yourself into a certain period of time and say, well, I definitely had all the answers figured out in 1999, so I don't see a reason to move from that point at all. And it's really strange whenever you see people who make it, because look, I always say that, I may have said it on the show, but I understand if I'm talking to someone who's 84 and he for the life of him, he can't wrap his mind around the fact that his his great nephew is a trans cat girl now. I get it. I don't expect him to understand that. I really don't. And I always say that eventually something like that's going to happen with me, where I'm going to look at something that a 24-year-old does and I'm 75 and I was like, wow, I got to tell you, that doesn't make any sense at all. Like, as cool as a guy as I am now, and I am, 50 years from now, I'm not going to be a cool dude if I'm the same person. I'm not going to be. And so I can either accept that, you know, the world isn't for me anymore. My time has come. I've lived it. It's coming to an end. And this world is going to continue with the young people and their world, and it's going to continue with or without me, and pretty soon without me. So I can either accept this and just understand that that's my position in life right now, or I can make it my entire fucking political identity to try to tear down people who are going to inherit the world when I'm not going to. And I can't understand doing the last part. I don't know what the purpose is.
Yeah, I don't understand what, like, I'm telling you, we were talking earlier about how just like we put out an insane amount of content for people who don't do this full time. Like we spend an insane amount of time. I cannot imagine giving a flying fuck about any of this when I'm 70 years old. Like if I'm still doing this
Oh,
at
no.
70, fucking put a bullet in my brain. Like I want to just go enjoy. The kids have taken over. I can just live out my life. I would now, if I'm in a position of political power, maybe that's a different thing. I don't know. If I have a show that's my livelihood, maybe. I don't know. I enjoy it, maybe. Who knows at that point? But like, I can't imagine genuinely giving a shit where the world goes after that. But I'm gonna enjoy my time that's left, and I'm getting the fuck out of here, and hoping whatever's next is better than this shit.
That's funny. That's funny. So I wrote down something I wanted to. It hit me right before the show started, and it's about this very same thing. And what I wrote down is what happened to old people. And the thought.
Well, TJ, they go to a farm upstate.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's they're playing pickleball and shuffleboard somewhere. It's very nice. Trust me. They have bad reception. That's why you haven't heard from them. but so when I was little, I remember 3 distinct types of old people. You had your standard default old person, which was the kind / wise / sweet old person. The old grandma who would, bake cookies and tell you what a handsome young fellow you were. And then you had
always came all off whenever she kissed you on the
forehead. Yeah. She had that weird bowl with the weird strawberry wrapped fruit candy that you never found anywhere else. And then you had,
they all have that, didn't they?
Where do
the caramel with the white filling, like those were always in there too.
Those were weird too.
They were always in a bowl. Like they're just like all old people. Just
I will say the old people candy that I really enjoy were the Werther's original. Like I bought those. Those things were fire, man. Like the old
occasionally I'll still buy them.
They're good. They hit for a hard candy. But then you also had your old my cat again. Your old grandpa, and old grandpa was always whittling or something, and he always had a story from the old times, and he'd sit you down and talk to you, and impart sage advice or whatever. And that was like your type A old person. That's what you ran across. What I ran across mostly. And then you had your type B old people who were just a horror to be around, just angry at the world, and their kids never called or talked to or visited them, and you hated seeing them outside. They'd yell at you like old man yells at cloud. You also had those old people. And then there was a small section of old people, like the type C, which were the goddamn insane old people, just old people who you didn't want to be around. Like they scared you. Like the mean old people weren't pleasant, but they at least had their faculties. But these days I look around, I fast forward 30 years later, and it seems like your default old person is the crazy QAnon old person. That's the one that I'm seeing a whole lot more than I used to. And it's devastating because, little kids now, they're not going to get the same experience that I got because the old people have all lost their minds. I mean, they're, like you said, when you're 70, you want to sit back and enjoy your accomplishments and your family and your life and enjoy your golden years. These people are hopping in RVs to go listen to Donald Trump and, hang out at the southern border for a Ted Nugent concert. It's gotten really dark. I hate that old people have transformed into this.
I feel like part of that is especially on the conservative side of the spectrum, this is much more applicable. There's many things I say fall evenly. You have stupid people evenly on both sides of the spectrum. This one is more conservatives that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
The politics have become part of the identity. Like back when I was growing up, yeah, you totally had political old people. You had to get off your lawn. Fuck the immigrants. I didn't like the Civil Rights Act old people. Yeah, no, like we had them, but it wasn't part of their identity.
Right.
If you were like in a room with a bunch of old people, politics probably wouldn't come up. And if they did, it would come up briefly. Nowadays, it's like they have it all over their fucking house, like the Trump flags, and it's just like
they do.
Why? And you like even like young conservative, you don't see young Trump voters like putting a fucking Trump flag, maybe in their college dorm room or something, but like you don't see like 30-year-old people with families voting for Trump putting the giant fucking Trump flags on their boats and shit. Like you just don't see it as much as you see these old fucks. and it's weird. It's weird to me. I think that's really the thing that has shifted it in this way that you're going is they got nothing to do but sit and watch Fox News all day. They get, and honestly, my grandfather, love my grandfather. He's a sweet old man. He's a Democrat, but like he does the same fucking thing, but the opposite. Like he sits and watches MSNBC or whatever the fuck it is he watches and gets mad at Trump all day. That's just what he does. And then he goes on my TikTok, and hopefully it's a day that I posted something bad about Trump and not Biden. But I have been his sole source of information that wasn't cable news, so that's been good. But like it is just like a thing. Like they got nothing to do. All of the content for them is becoming more political, and it's becoming more of their identity. And like I guess young people also have an identity thing with politics, but it's not attached to a human in the way that the old people are.
So I was thinking about the the outward displays and the obsession about the memorabilia and everything. And what I was going to say, what I wrote down in my notes here, is that you were talking about the flags and the bumper stickers and the T-shirts. We're lucky old people don't like tattoos. Otherwise, we see a bunch of Trump tattoos all over the place. We're lucky it doesn't go that far. But I was thinking about how in the military, whenever I go outside, and you guys have seen the Vietnam War veteran hats, the guys that have their medals on baseball caps and all that. And I would joke about how you never saw anyone like south of 50 wearing a hat talking about the war they fought in. You never really see that. You don't see a lot of Operation Iraqi Freedom written on people's hats or whatever. It's always Vietnam War or something like that. World War II when they were still around, the few that are left. And now you will see other signifiers for vets specifically. Basically, they wear a hat with the American flag on it. That's kind of their thing. And they'll grow really big beards. They love looking like a mountain man. And sometimes
they weren't allowed to for so long.
Right? Yeah. Well, and the only people in the military who will grow beards like that are special forces guys. And so they're like, most of them aren't special forces, obviously. But like, oh, look at me, I was in the military, so I was an operator, and so they love the beard and shit. But that's the only time I can think of it with younger people, because that does seem to be an older person thing where you are a fan of something, not just politics, but you buy a flag, you buy a bumper sticker, you buy a hat, you buy a T-shirt, and you wear it all the time. Like you never see someone who's 32. Well, you rarely see someone who's 32 with a car that's just papered over in bumper stickers. That's kind of an old person thing.
That is an old person thing.
Yeah.
I wonder, and I'm really just like
real quick. I want to say, because I wrote that down. That was gonna be my point until you brought up your grandpa, because he probably doesn't have a Biden flag in his yard.
No, he doesn't have a Biden flag. No, he hates Trump. It's also about Trump for him. He doesn't he's fine with Biden. He generally likes Biden, but he hates Trump. That's what it is,
Yeah, but it kind of dissolves my theory that when they're fans of something, they have a bunch of memorabilia for it. I guess Obama had that because people like to say Trump has a cult. He does. There was kind of an Obama cult too. There kind of was. A lot of people did have that. It wasn't nearly as bad as this Trump stuff.
People definitely had. They had like the hope thing. They had that like deco art thing of Obama. Like that was everywhere.
Yep.
But like I don't know. I felt like those were more like at least growing up. When I was seeing them, it always felt more just like that deco art thing specifically was just a piece of art. You know what I mean? Like it was more like I appreciate that, and the hope was just it was a campaign message that fucking resonated hard.
The only major difference to me from like seeing both of those is that the emotion is slightly different. It's like the energy is there. So with Obama, like you mentioned, it was aspirational. It was Obama was the sign that, hey, things could get better. Look how progressive we are. We elected a black president. I never thought it. I heard a lot of people say that. I heard a lot of people say, I never thought I'd see this. Like, really? You never thought we'd get one? And I don't know. That seemed weird to me even back then. I was like, I mean,
like, even back then, like if you're not like older than like if you're like 80 back then, I get that you
of course,
But if you're like a middle-aged person and you're like you didn't think the next 40 fucking years you'd see a black president.
That's what I said, because when Obama was elected, what was I was 20 man, do math, TJ. 26. And I remember thinking And I heard people my age saying, I can't believe this. I never thought I'd see it. And I was like, really? I kind of expected one of these elections. I'm going to be around for like 12 more presidential elections. I kind of expect that we're going to see at least one of them.
Statistically speaking, I think one of them is going to be black.
Somebody would get it. Yeah, so I remember that. But anyway, Obama was like all aspirational and everything. They all thought that, hey, this is a good sign for the nation. Trump's is emotional too, but it's just spite. That's all it is. Like, yeah, I mean, I'm not just saying this because I'm on the left and I want to dunk on Trump supporters, but it's true. If you read all their memorabilia and their T-shirts, what does it say? Trump 2024, fuck your feelings. Trump 2024, make liberals cry. Like, it's all about, your enemy feeling pain more than it is getting anything for you.
Yeah, and I wonder if, like, when it comes to the memorabilia and that aspect of it, like the bumper stickers, all of that, if it has something to do, like, I know that older generations tended to buy things, and younger generations tend to buy experiences. And obviously that's going to change from person to person, but the economy has shifted because the desires of younger people aren't to collect more stuff. Whereas older people, when they were growing up, stuff was much more scarce. And having the nice things was how you symbolized whatever you are. Whereas we have an experience and we post on Instagram, and that's how we show the world who we are.
Yeah.
They buy a flag, they buy a car, they buy a physical thing, and that's how they show the world who they are. And I wouldn't be surprised if a little bit of that was playing into the generation divide. So, like, to say this, it might not be that old people are like worse. It will probably be just as bad, and young people will be saying how weird our shit is.
Of course.
But I don't know. I do also think, and I have been thinking this, TJ, and you're not old enough to actually answer me this, but like, if I were to talk to like an 80-year, I imagine, I'm thinking about my life right now. 27 years old, work a full-time job, I have a good job, I get paid an above average salary, not a, I'm not fucking rich, but come from an upper middle class household, have an above average salary for my age, generally comfortable life. I have this, I have all this I do, and I feel like in order to maintain just my current lifestyle, I have to fucking drive myself insane. Like, I feel like I have to have a mental breakdown every couple of weeks just to reset the wheels so I can keep it all running. And I can't imagine that's how 27-year-olds felt in 1950.
No chance. Chance.
And so, like, it feels to me that the internet has caught up to older people. Like, when I was young, older people they weren't on the internet.
Yeah.
Like, all of the old people when I was a kid, they are dead now and they never touched the internet. But like, now the internet is hitting them, and they're in the 2008 YouTube era of their understanding of the internet, and that is like fucking crack cocaine to an 80-year-old mind who never experienced this their entire lives. It must legitimately drive them crazy. Like, I can't imagine having lived a relatively simple life for 60 years and then suddenly discover the internet and hook it up to my bloodstream and just see what that does to me, because that's got to be fucking, I understand why they're crazy. I would probably be crazy too. I'll probably be crazy by the time I'm their age because of all the exposure to shit.
So about that, this is a complaint I've had about old people for a long time. And this is going back many years.
I love that we're 33 minutes in. We spent maybe 5 minutes talking about politics and the other 25 minutes shitting on old people.
Well, they do it to us all the time. They have it coming, as far as I'm concerned. But so I remember this doesn't happen quite as much. All right. Whenever you're shopping and you're out at the grocery store, once again, this doesn't happen nearly as much as it used to 10 years ago, but you're in line, you're getting ready to pay, and you're paying with a card like a normal person, or maybe you have, $100 bill, you're going to pay for this. But then, Gertrude is in front of you there, and she's checking out her groceries, and she gets up there to pay. She puts on her purse on the counter. She pulls out a checkbook. She pulls out a pen. She pulls out her glasses. And then it's just like, it takes, 10 minutes for her. So I was like, look, this is annoying. But that's better than the times when they're going to check out with like the self-checkout and they got to use a card. and they're staring at this machine like they gotta, you know, disarm a bomb or something. And you're like, okay, this technology has been around a very long time. Why are you just now getting onto this? And this is what's bothered me, is that when old people, well, actually they're not even old at the time, they just refuse to adapt with what's changing. I noticed this lady that used to work in my dad had like a thrift store, and there was this older lady who worked. She was like 80, and she dressed exactly like, you ever see I Love Lucy? You ever see reruns of I Love Lucy or whatever? She dressed like, she wore like the capri pants, is like a really old style that had, from like, you know, 40 years ago at the time. I was like, why does she dress like that? And I think my mom said, oh, she's just wearing what was popular when she was young. I said, oh, okay, well, that makes sense. For about 5 minutes. And I thought, wait a minute, hold on. I get that she liked that 40 years ago, but this was out of style 30 years ago. So she like, there's really, and this is just, that was just a microcosm for what I've experienced from like really old people ever since then, is that they run into these situations where they refuse to adapt with what's coming. And then when they're forced to, they fall apart. And that's where I think we're going to be different. Actually, I think that we are actually more receptive to change, because that you got to stay dynamic if you want to stay not only competitive, but just sane in this world. And they kind of missed their chance, which is why they ended up the way they did.
TJ, it genuinely blows my mind sometimes just how syncopado we are on things without ever having discussed them. Because I've been saying exactly that for a long time. And I don't even make content about this. Like, you wouldn't have heard me say this, but like, I just fundamentally, and I've said this for a long time, millennials are going to significantly change that dynamic, because we grew up with the internet and constant technological change and having to always be adapting to new things. And so, and you know, fuck that. Old people also grew up with constant technological change. I don't want to like give them too much benefit of the doubt here, but at some point it changed where like, okay, when I was 10 and when I was 20, two different worlds, you know? And for them, it was maybe when they were 10 and when they were 35 or whatever. But like, still, I think we're going to constantly adapt, and there's still going to be, we're going to feel like old people with the younger people. I think that AI is one of the things that like millennials, when whatever's after Gen Alpha, they're going to make fun of millennials for not understanding AI in the same way we make fun of boomers for not getting fax machines. Wait, is that just like, did you just comment that?
I just did that, yeah.
I mean, it's true. Everyone needs to get their shit together. You know, at least I have time. But like the other thing, voice technology, like we're gonna sound so old.
Oh yeah,
we have learned this system of voice prompts where like we have to wait for it's going to be just instantaneous, like a conversation with technology when we're 60, 70, 80, and we're going to be like, hey Google, and we're going to wait for it to respond, and the kids are going to be like, you can just say what you want.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. But it's going to be ingrained in us. We're never going to get over that. But at least we will have tried to adapt. We will know how the systems work. It'll just be pure instincts we don't have. And I think the difference between a 20-year-old and an 80-year-old in 2024 is going to be significantly larger than the difference between a 24-year-old and an 80-year-old in 2060. You know, I could be wrong about that. I'm sure every generation throughout history has probably thought, oh, we're not going to be as bad as the old people are. But like, I do kind of think that.
I don't know if every generation has thought that. I don't. Do you think boomers thought that? Because I can't imagine they're radically different than like silent genders. In fact, I know they're not, because a few silent genders are still around. Like Joe Biden's a silent gen guy.
But like the silent gen wasn't the old people for the boomers. The silent gen was
okay.
Like, well, if you like think Gen X, like Gen X isn't.
Yeah, they're not. Oh, yeah, okay, yeah. All right.
So, like, to them, it would have been the people who fucking.
There's no name for that generation.
World War I.
Yeah.
There was a name. I don't know.
We don't have. Yeah.
And so they probably were like, yeah, the people who grew up when, like, I don't know, the Ottoman Empire existed, like they're old. We're not going to be as bad as them. I imagine the fucking hippies thought that. I don't know. You know what I mean?
I don't know. We talked about the hippies before, and I have a lot of respect for them. But it's yeah, that's true. That's true. It's also weird thinking about. We've been making jokes about this for a long time about how when we get old, we're going to like we'll be listening to like modern hip hop in nursing homes and stuff, and how weird that's gonna be. You know, like we're not gonna start listening to freeform jazz. We're listening to the same shit we've always listened to. And what do you say? Shit, I lost it. About old people and us adapting is that we are doing a better job with it. And you kind of get bullied into it, and that's how I know it's gonna work, because we don't care as much about, you know, what people think about you as we did when we were, 15, but we still do. You know, everybody does to a point. And I think I care more about what people think of me at 41 than my dad did at 41. Like, I remember my dad at 41, he did not give a shit. Like, he didn't at all. And but I definitely do. That's why I'm here. That's why I have this bottomless pit of attention that I need to fill. So I put myself in front of a camera when I don't need to do it at all. I could be, resting from work. But but being bullied into it is one example I thought of just now when you're talking about the delay talking to, Hey Google and everything, is the millennial pause. Because I kept seeing videos of people talking about the millennial pause. I had no fucking clue what they meant. I didn't know what they were talking about. And then I finally found out. I said, oh, okay. And so I tried to work on it. And then every once in a while on TikTok, I'll see a video come up. It's like, hey, on this day, and I'll see a video that I made, a year and a half ago or something. My pauses are a mile long. I mean, they are just, I'm just like the video starts. Hey, have you ever wondered why Saturn? And I'm just like, it's just weird. And those videos are just, they cringe the hell out of me. But yeah, you're right. We will adapt, because we've already proven that we can, certainly more than, people our age 30 years ago were. So I definitely think you're onto something there.
I still have the millennial pause, but that's because I just edit it away. I don't really bother too much about fixing it, but yeah, no, I totally do that. I'm weird. So I'm zillennial. Like, I'm very much in between the two.
No, you're not a zillennial. You're between. Oh, zillennial. Gotcha. So it's funny because Gen X and millennials, th're also called zennials because it's X-ennial, so it's pronounced with the Z. I was like, wait, you're definitely, that would mean you're older than me, but okay, I see. It's still the same word, but different spelling.
Yeah, whatever. Who gives a shit? But I'm like, I'm right in between. I always say, like, can you remember 2001, 9/11? Can you remember 9/11? If you can, you're a millennial. If you can't, you're Gen Z. And I think that's a pretty good rule of thumb. And I barely remember. Like, I remember some things. I was fucking.
I was gonna ask, what's your memory of 9/11? Like, what was it?
My memory of 9/11 was my mom. So I that day. I didn't go to school because I was like an afternoon kindergarten. I think at the time, if I remember correctly. And so like my mom just said, "Hey, you're not going to school that day." And then the next day, when I was going to go to school, she was like, this is the thing I remember. I remember her saying, "Okay, Jonathan, you're going to hear some things. Some things have been going on." And like told me, don't be scared. It's not going to happen again. If you learn about it, if you see anything on the news, it's not happening now. It happened yesterday. It's all okay now. Like, I remember that conversation. And I remember specifically like going out and like playing in the playground that day with my neighbor. And like us just looking at the sky, every airplane, because we were by the one that crash landed. Like it crash landed like 40 miles away from where I live. And so like it was a thing. We were just watching the sky, like, is that one? What about that one? What about that one? And we're fucking 5. But like that's my memory of 9/11. And like the panic of the adults and not quite understanding it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that would have been surreal as a 5-year-old. Seeing, I mean, you barely have an understanding of reality and life, and then all of a sudden, the people who are running this thing are shitting their pants all over you. Like, that had to be terrifying. Like, see, even think about the plane, because they grounded the planes that day. So, but there were still some in the air, obviously, that had to land.
Maybe it wasn't the next day. Maybe it was a couple of days. That's my memory.
It had to have been the same. Okay, I see. Okay,
yeah, it could have been a couple. True. I don't. That's what I remember.
Yeah. That's wild. So. You didn't ask, but my 9/11 memory, since I
figured you'd go into it.
I might as well, as I go into it, is that I was a sophomore in college, and I remember we had like a school meeting at like 9:30, and it was Central Time, so it'd have been 10:30 Eastern. And I remember I walked into this auditorium, and my buddy, his name was Mac, and he was helping set up chairs for the event. and the radio was on for some reason. When they had like on a loudspeaker, because I didn't have classes that morning, so I slept all morning, and so I walked over to the auditorium. I went inside. Mac was setting up shit. Yeah, weird, because that would have never happened today. I would have known in my bed.
I was just thinking that. I'm just like,
exactly. I know
it's so crazy. You just didn't know the news until
you
saw the TV.
And so, people were talking in very serious tones. I couldn't figure out what was going on. Also, and Mac's like, "Hey, TJ, did you hear what happened?" I was like, "No, what?" And he said that a couple of planes have flown into the Twin Towers. I was like, "Whoa, that's not news I expected to hear." And I said, "Well, what happened?" He says, "One also flew into the Pentagon." I was like, "Get the fuck out of here!" I thought it was a joke when he said that. I was like, "No, buddy, yeah." I said, "There's no fucking way a plane flew into the Pentagon. Like, you had me with the World Trade Center. That's a good one, man. But come on." He's like, "No, I still remember his face." And he says, "No, I'm serious." And it was like weird tunnel vision and everything. And then I went upstairs to the main building of university, and everyone was huddled around the TV, and we're all watching this news. And I remember my buddy, my best friend at the time, Josh McCarthy was his name, and he said that, "Yeah, I hear that this might be the work of Osama bin Laden." And I was like, "Who? How do you know who?" And in my friend group, I was the smart one. I was like, how does he know who this like international terrorist is? I've never heard of this guy. But yeah, it was a while. And then we crowded around the TV to watch President Bush talk, and we heard about the war on terror. And I remember everyone is just like they tell you about how everyone was just bloodthirsty for war. Everyone could not wait to exact our righteous revenge on the infidels. Like, everyone wanted it. And I remember everyone panicking that gas was going to go through the roof. And I remember I had my tank was pretty much full, but I was like, I'll go out just in case. Yeah, I went out. Every gas station on the block was just circled around with vehicles, and it was like that all day. And the gas didn't really rise that much either. Gas really didn't go up that much for several months later. But yeah, that was a wild time, and it's weird thinking about stuff like that and how it just changed. I saw a great TikTok on this thing where it was Bill Burr, actually, and Bill Burr was talking about how it annoys him when people say that, this generation is soft. These kids these days, these young folk, they don't know what's going on. It's like, he said, "What are you talking about? Like, they've been at war. This country's been at war their entire lives. Like, a bunch of them have served. They've lived through several economic collapses. They can't buy houses. This is one of the toughest generations in years. Like, it's weird that old people have the balls to shit on us after the world was handed to them on a silver platter like that."
Yeah, and
what was their 9/11? Like, what was your 9/11 if you were born in 1955? Like, you missed World
Pearl
War
Harbor,
II.
yeah.
Yeah, you missed. Yeah, what was your 9/11? Anyway, it's just
fucking, I don't know what got us into Vietnam. Whatever the fuck.
Yeah.
It was the Cuban Missile Crisis.
The Cuban Missile Crisis that didn't even happen.
Yeah.
That's the closest. That's the closest they had to Vietnam, was something that didn't even happen. I mean, to 9/11, something that didn't even happen. Yeah.
So you brought up a couple points there I want to address. So I had this realization last night. I was thinking about it. So I saw someone say, Trump's the worst president in U.S. history. And I was like, yeah, you hear that a lot. And then I was like, fuck, is he even the worst president in my lifetime? And I thought about it. I was like, no, it's not even close. George W. Bush easily takes that. Like, if you compare Trump's list of accomplishments to Bush's, it's not even close. Like, we survived the Trump years. It was kind of crazy, but like nothing terrible. Like, the pandemic happened, but like that wasn't Trump.
Yeah, it wasn't Trump.
And so like that's not really on Trump. Yeah, he gave tax cuts to the rich. That sucks. That's gonna fuck us up. He appointed some Supreme Court justices that's gonna fuck us up for a long time. But that was really more Mitch McConnell than his doing. Like, what did Trump really do that was so egregiously bad? Now, if he successfully completes his fascist coup, then that's a totally different scenario. But up to this point, he didn't hurt us too bad. When you look at Bush, he gets into the presidency with that, like, by cheating. The Supreme Court just hands him the presidency because whatever. I don't know how that happened. Like, I look back at that time period, I'm just like, if I was alive, yeah. I knew that'd be taken out of context. If I was alive, if I was 27 years old in 2001, I would be like the most hated person. Like, I would not have been able to jive with what was going on back then. I would have been this like far left radical, because there was no way I would have been bloodthirsty for war. Like, I can't imagine having that feeling ever. If Osama bin Laden personally dropped a plane onto my family directly, I can't imagine like being bloodthirsty to go to war. And I'd be against that. And I'd be like, yeah, fuck you guys. Like, and I would be hated. And that would just suck. But what was I saying? But Bush, he goes in, he Katrina, fucking the 2008 financial crisis, he goes out on probably the worst thing our country's ever done in my lifetime is the 2008 global financial crisis. And yeah, he just takes the cake easy. It's not even fucking close.
I agree. I've been saying this once again. We're right on target with each other. I've been saying this for a long time because people, it's not close. It is not close. First off, Bush was in 8 years, Trump was in 4. I mean, he's already got that on him. He's already.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're comparing two. Yeah, but even if you just compare term one,
it's how many more people, how many more deaths is George W. Bush responsible for than Donald Trump?
So many more,
right? And if you don't even want to count the blood, you can count the treasure. Yeah, Trump did the tax cuts, but Bush did tax cuts too. I mean, he was known for them. He got us started on this decades-long irresponsible war on terror that's killed countless people, American and non-American alike. I mean, the one thing you can say about Trump is that Trump did have a more galvanizing effect on right-wing radicals, because right-wing radicals supported Bush. Don't get me wrong, they absolutely did, but they didn't love him like they love Trump. That's the one area that you can say that Trump had a bigger effect. But when it comes to their time in office, I don't think it's close. I think there's a good argument Reagan, well, it's not your lifetime, but Reagan was worse than Trump too. And don't get me wrong, Trump's bad. He's terrible. But when it comes to the actual death and destruction, which is really why it bothers me that there's been this renaissance for George W. Bush, and now he's just a kind old man who does
buddy with the Obamas. Like,
it's disgusting. I hate it so fucking much, man. Yeah, it's really gross. But I agree with you. Absolutely.
And I get the whole like President's Club thing. Like, there's only 4 people on the planet who can understand what you're going through. I totally get the relationship between Bush and Obama, but Michelle being buddy, like, that doesn't make any sense. I'm sorry, I would not.
That's a weird thing too, because look, that's true. If I had a job for 4 or 8 years and there were only 3 people on the planet that had that job, you kind of got to talk to them, right? I mean, you kind of have to. Like Trump, they've all made an exception for Trump. Like they're all like, nah, fuck that guy, which is like, I get why they do it, but that just makes Trump cooler to his supporters. Like, oh yeah, he's not part of the good old boys club, and which is insanity. But I remember seeing, so when the last time we had the peaceful transfer of power, Trump made a big deal about the fact that he didn't go to Biden's inauguration, which was out of order. That I can't think of another time when that's happened. Certainly not in my lifetime. And back in '92. George Bush Sr. lost his reelection bid to Bill Clinton, and Clinton, like a week after he got into the White House, or actually I don't know when he released it because I know it's such older, but he released a letter that George Bush Sr. left in the desk of the Oval Office for Bill Clinton when he got there. And it's a very nice letter if you read it or whatever. It's like,
I've read this before, but it's not coming to mind what it says.
Yeah, he talks about, the first time he was in the White House and the experience that he had and his time, serving in the position and what an honor it was for his nation, wishing him well for the future. I was like, this is like something out of the Twilight Zone. Like I couldn't imagine something like that, especially after we saw with. Now, that's not to say that George Bush Sr. and Bill Clinton are great guys. That's not what I'm saying here. But the camaraderie I do kind of get when you're in a position like that, and very few people are.
Yeah, and that's like the other thought that I had with the whole George Bush thing. If 9/11 happened today, Republicans would be shitting down Biden's throat about causing the worst security failure since Pearl Harbor.
Of course,
yeah. We'd be seeing ads on TV 24/7 of Biden licking an ice cream cone while terrorists snuck onto a plane behind him. Like, it would be so. It wouldn't even be like they have to think about this. It would be instant reaction.
No.
And back then, Democrats not only didn't attack Bush for 9/11, they circled the wagons around him.
They did.
And it's like, it feels like a different era. Like, I know that I was alive for that, but it feels like a different world. It feels like reading about World War II. Like, it's just like, oh, that's how things used to work. And that was in my lifetime. And that feels like a completely foreign concept to me now.
Yeah. I remember on 9/11, like when it happened that day, the people in the Congress or the Senate, maybe both, they came outside the Capitol building and they all sang "God Bless America." I remember singing that, and it stuck out to me because I noted that they sang "God Bless America," which is a infinitely superior song to the Star Spangled Banner. And I was like, the Star Spangled Banner is a shitty song. It's got to go. It is a terrible national anthem. It's all truncated. It's hard to sing. It's got the weird high parts.
We're putting a pin in that. That's our next topic conversation. But
yeah, Bush had I shit you not, a 90% approval rating after 9/11. The entire country. Oh, I was gonna bring that up too, because you say you wouldn't have been for the war, but I don't know, a lot of people were, man. It was like 9 out of 10 people. It's like insane how there weren't a lot of Amy Goodmans around these days. Like, and this, you have to factor in how we grew up too. We grew up in a very different universe. Like, we weren't fighting any wars in the 80s, and no big ones at least. And we thought that, hey, we're just the good guys here, just chilling out, and we got attacked for no reason. And I mean, not to justify 9/11, of course not, but there was a reason they did it. And so we saw ourselves as, the shining city on the hill and the world police. So we were fully justified in our rage, in our mind. And looking back on it is very shameful, but that was a pretty common opinion, at least for the first year. And then after that, people kind of came to their senses, and more people are speaking out against it.
Yeah, you're right. Maybe I would have been, but I really
you can't know. I mean, there's no way.
No, and I would have grown up in a different time period.
I like to think that if I was a white guy in 1849, I would have been out there leading the charge against abolition. Most likely not. It's gotta be real. Most likely not. But that's just how it is.
I will say, I don't know if I would have been leading the charge against abolition. I do genuinely think I still would have been anti. I've always been a pretty strong pacifist, and I just can't imagine anything would have gotten my engines revving to go to war. Maybe I wouldn't have been outwardly not supporting it, but by 2003 I would have been probably.
Wait, are you talking about the Civil War or War on Terror?
Okay. Maybe I combined a couple.
Yeah, because I'm imagining Jonathan Cooper, Archibald IV, like some stodgy aristocrat in Alabama going up to black folks like, "Oh, I tell you, good sir, I will not fight for your freedom, but I support it." I can see you.
If I remember correctly, during the Civil War, my ancestors were being starved by the British, so like I wouldn't have even been here. But I don't know how I would have felt about it. Like, that's like so far back. Like,
of course, yeah.
But I'm like, if I would have been born in 1980, when I was 21 in 2011. I feel like I would have by 2000 after 9/11. Wow, after 9/11, I might have circled the wagons. But by 2003, when we're talking about invading Iraq, I don't think I would have been pro invading Iraq.
You know what I mean? Yeah. A lot of people cooled down. Well, John, it's been an hour. This has been a great one. This has been pretty fun. We've gotten the feel of this. I think this live thing. This is pretty good.
It has, but you know what we didn't do, Tisha?
We didn't pick topics.
Yeah,
I know. Because just now I was like, man, I actually don't have 2 topics ready.
So I was thinking that we should do a post-mortem on Nikki Haley, because we've done it.
Of course. Oh yeah, it'd be fun.
We've done it for we did it for. Wow, I'm losing it. We need to end this soon. It's been a long day. We did it for Florida guy DeSantis. I was just like, what is his name?
What's that? DeSantis. The meatball guy. Who was he?
The guy with the high heels. We did it for Vivek. We should do it for Nikki.
She's earned it. She's earned it.
I wasn't going to do it for Nikki.
Yeah.
But hey, that's the other reason. But actually, fuck it. We'll save it for tomorrow. So we'll do Nikki Haley tomorrow. I would like to do the uncommitted vote.
Uncommitted votes. All right.
I'd like to do a topic on the uncommitted vote. And what's there? What else has been in the? I told you I haven't been paying attention.
Yeah, the only one that jumped to mind was Nikki Haley for me. We had Kamala Harris calling for a ceasefire. That one cracked.
I'll take that as a topic. I think that's a good one. We'll have
what's good English?
EK on the show tomorrow. So he's always good at speaking about that topic. And so that's 3. What's our 4th? What the fuck else has happened?
Man, what's been going on? We had the primary Harris. What else has been going on? Oh, well, I don't know. The ones I'm thinking about,
but I don't. That doesn't like get my hair standing on end at all.
I'd like to talk. So I did a video talking about the sexism of the Republican Party, and but it's very clip heavy. We don't do clips anymore because I was showing a bunch of clips about how all these Republicans say that they wouldn't vote for Haley because she's a woman, and a bunch of them don't like women voting. That kind of tied into the cinema one. I don't know. We'll think about it.
Okay, so those are our 3. And
we'll have a 4th one.
We'll try and find a 4th. Stay tuned. We haven't had many viewers today, I don't think, at least looking at the comments. But
we have 2 right now.
Okay.
We had up to 5, so
that's good.
Pretty similar to last
time.
The
numbers are creeping up. That's how these things typically go. So we'll keep plugging away. We're doing live tomorrow, right?
We is.
All right, so we'll be live at 6:00 tomorrow. So definitely be there, be square, and be ready to hear what our 4th topic is, because it's going to be a doozy.
Thanks for joining us, folks. Talk to you later.
All right, bye.